Hello everybody and welcome back. Today we are on Unit 3, Lesson number 7, and that is Human Impact. Today we are going to take a look at how we ourselves impact the lithosphere. And just a reminder, our lithosphere is the crust of the Earth and the upper portion of that mantle. So this lecture goes along with your interactive notebook pages for the day, so go ahead and have those in front of you and let's get started. So today we're going to be looking at land use and how do we use the earth. So there are a few different types of land use we're going to be going over. The three types are urbanization, which is just building cities, agriculture, which is how we get our food, and then mining, which is how we get different kind of minerals that we need for energy. So what is urbanization? This is just the physical growth of cities or taking the characteristics of cities. So when we talk about urbanization, we're building cities typically outward, and we do this for different reasons. So if we think about Charlotte, Charlotte is an urban area. And people build cities for proximity so that people can be closer to the things that they desire. So things like job opportunities, transportation and housing, entertainment and attractions, diversity, and marketplace competition. If you think about Charlotte, there are so many different areas of Charlotte and so many things to do. It's an urban area and people like to be there or be close to it so they can do things that they find entertaining. I particularly really enjoy the NODA area. But there's all kinds of things like the Panther Stadium, the Charlotte Knights Stadium, all kinds of amazing restaurants and nightlife. So it really is a fun place to be. And Charlotte is not unique in that. There are many large cities that people enjoy for those reasons. So how do our cities affect our earth? Well, with deforestation, that happens when we cut down trees in an area, and deforestation can lead to a number of things. So you reduce the amount of habitats available for organisms, but also you can reduce the amount of oxygen in an area because trees do photosynthesis, and they do release oxygen, and they also provide a cooling effect for areas nearby. You can also have increased flooding because the pavement is impervious, so water can't move through the pavement, and the surfaces will cause water to run off into streams instead of being absorbed down into the ground, and that can lead to increased flooding. Also, increased pollution from things like automobiles, and then people also just generating a lot of trash because they're very densely populated in an area. And typically, cities will become something called urban heat islands, and this is when pavement absorbs heat all day and then will release it at night, making the surrounding area warmer. This definitely happens in Charlotte. If you go into Charlotte on a hot summer day, Charlotte will be a few degrees warmer than the suburbs around it because all of that asphalt is absorbing that radiation and making it hotter. So here are some causes and effects of urbanization. So job opportunities, entertainment, transportation, diversity, that marketplace competition, and then the effects would be increased pollution, increased flooding, deforestation, and heat islands. So this is kind of like a cost versus benefit analysis of urbanization. So let's move on to talking about agriculture. So why is land used for agriculture? Let me see, we've got this cute little guy here chilling in his field. So until we learn to farm, humans tend to be nomadic, so they would follow their food sources. So as cattle or buffalo would migrate, they would follow them as well. Well, once we started to farm, we could actually settle in one place because we had a steady stream of food available, a steady stream of agriculture. So agriculture is just a stable food source. Things like vegetables, meat is included in agriculture, and then animal feed as well. There is economic gain to be had from this, so farmers do make money. There is a whole capitalistic society that revolves around food. But it also provides us with non-edible sources as well, such as cotton for clothing, also tobacco. Obviously, you should not be smoking cigarettes. It's not good for you, but tobacco is an agricultural product, and also ethanol for oil. So how does agriculture affect the lithosphere? So again, we can have deforestation, which is cutting down those forests in order to make farmland. And as we cut down those forests, we lose habitats, we lose oxygen production. Overgrazing is when you allow your cattle to overly consume grass in an area, and it will pull up the roots from the grass, and it can cause really bad erosion, and then also pollution. We as humans emit a lot of pollution through our agricultural practice from farm machinery and also fertilizers that we use. So other side effects of deforestation includes loss of habitat, which means a loss in biodiversity. And biodiversity is all the different life forms in an area. If we have less habitat available for different organisms to occupy the space, we will see a decrease in that biodiversity. And we want a good amount of it because it's a good thing. It will also cause an increase in erosion, as well as increased evaporation that can lead to drought. So when we have trees in an area, they will shade the soil and prevent the loss of water from the soil being evaporated by radiation from the sun. When we cut those trees down and take them away, there's nothing to protect the soil from the radiation from the sun, and so more water will evaporate. And then, of course, there's higher CO2 in the air because carbon dioxide is what plants need for photosynthesis. So they're not taking it in, and then they're not releasing oxygen. So like I said earlier, overgrazing is basically just when cattle and farm animals are allowed to excessively eat grasses and vegetation in an area. And when this happens, plants will be exposed to grazing with insufficient recovering period, meaning that the roots will grow smaller and eventually the plants will begin to die off. So this is not a sustainable practice. And again, this occurs from having more animals on a piece of land than it can support. So how does agriculture actually cause pollution? Well, the pesticides and the herbicides that we use to control the insects and the weeds that could potentially eat our agriculture will run off with rain into rivers, and then these can cause major problems with rivers. One of the major things that agricultural fertilizers can cause are hypoxic waterways. And basically, these are just dead zones where oxygen levels have decreased to where they cannot support life. And the reason for this is a little bit complicated, but I'll explain it to you guys because I know that you're smart and that you can handle it. Basically, there are lots of nutrients in fertilizers that algae really like. So they have a bunch of nitrogen and phosphorus in them. And when they get into the waterways, the algae love it. They have so many nutrients, they just grow and grow and grow and grow. Well, eventually, when the nutrients run out, the algae have nothing left to eat and they die. And so what you get is, a river or a stream or a lake that has an excess of algae in it that starts to die. Well, there are decomposers of bacteria in the water. And the decomposers are going to do their job, and they're going to clear away all the dead algae. Well, in order to do their job, the bacteria have to have oxygen, so they steal it from the water in order to break down the algae. And when that happens, the oxygen in the water decreases, and you get dead zones where organisms can't live, because fish and plants and all kinds of organisms in the water still do need oxygen. So here are our summary of the cause and effects of agriculture. So on the left-hand side, we have our causes, and on the right-hand side, we have our effects. So what is mining and why is it done? Mining is the extraction of valuable minerals or other resources from the earth, and this is done for economic gain and also for different resources for energy sources as well. So how is this done? There's surface mining, where you will take ores and precious minerals from the top of the earth. There's subsurface mining, which will take place beneath the earth here. So you'll dig the tunnels underneath the surface and look for the different minerals that you're looking to extract. And then there is in situ mining, which is a little bit more complicated, but sometimes it will do with basically pushing water into our lithosphere and pushing it through in order to extract some of the ore that we're looking for, or whatever mineral it is that we're looking to extract. So how does mining actually affect the environment? So acid mine drainage from subsurface mining can be really detrimental in our ecosystem. Also, deforestation and erosion are side effects of mining. Also, the formation of sinkholes. So a sinkhole will happen in an area where there's basically an underground cave. And in some cases, these are man-made mines where you've dug underneath to get to the gold or platinum or whatever it is you're looking for. And basically what happens is over time, the soil on top of the mine becomes weak and it will eventually collapse and cause a sinkhole. Also, we can get contamination of the soil and the groundwater. And then there are some diseases like black lung, blue baby syndrome, and asthma. Obviously, miners that work in deep within, especially subsurface mines, they will breathe in a lot of harmful soot, which will affect their lungs. And here is a picture. We've got some healthy lung tissue. We've got a miner who has spent 10 years in a mine and then 20 to 30 years in the mine. You can see the necrosis of this lung tissue and how it looks very sooty. This is not good for your health. And so here are our causes and effects of mining. So economic gain, minerals, energy resources, but mining can lead to deforestation, acid mine drainage, diseases, loss of biodiversity, contamination of soil and water, and sinkholes. So coal is something that can be extracted from underground, but coal is either mined underground or in an open pit through something called mountaintop removal, and basically they'll go in and they will use dynamite to blast off the tops of mountains and they will extract coal. This happens a lot in Virginia, the Virginia mountains. Coal is a non-renewable fossil fuel, but we do use it to power some power plants. But coal is basically just plant matter that was buried a long time ago, and it's compressed into the coal, and it's further compressed into its most usable form, which is anthracite. So coal can be extracted from the ground. It's just old plant matter, old organic matter that was compressed over a long period of time, and we can now extract it and burn it for fuel. And these are some pictures of coal mines, and this one in the bottom left corner would be an example of that mountaintop removal. Uranium and plutonium are also mined. Uranium mines are typically open pit, in situ, or underground. Plutonium will be extracted from uranium deposits, and we'll talk about this a little bit more when we talk about our energy lesson next week. But these are the radioactive elements that are used in nuclear energy. So they occur in extremely small amounts in most rocks. So when you think about nuclear power plants are powered by, remember, fission. So human-made fission, the breaking apart of heavy atoms. And that fission is done with uranium mostly. Uranium is the number one source for our nuclear power plants. But basically the gist of it is you have a nuclear reactor that will perform the fission with the uranium, and then it will kind of generate heat, which will then heat up some water, and then the steam will be pushed forward to turn a turbine, and then the turbine will generate the electricity. So that's how we use uranium and plutonium too, but mostly uranium as a fuel source for our nuclear power plants. And then drilling is a cutting process that uses a drill bit to cut or enlarge a hole in the earth for extraction purposes, and we extract oil and natural gas. And oil, again, is just what we put in our cars to make them go. So here's just a little cartoon about arguments against nuclear power. Nuclear power can be dangerous when not used correctly. It's typically considered to be safe today, but there have been some very serious disasters with nuclear power. Oil is very detrimental. It's very pollution heavy, and so is coal. And then we also have wind power, which is a renewable resource, which we'll talk about later on. But this guy is angry, and he's like, I don't want this wind turbine in my backyard, which is, not a very good argument if you ask me. So what can we do to help? What can we do to help mitigate these issues? We can create green cities, so add walls that can hold plant life, walkable urban areas, entice people to move back into the cities instead of urban sprawl. So instead of moving the cities outwards, build up rather than out, build better public transportation, urban farming, and then build structures that use sustainable energy such as solar, wind, hydroelectric, etc. keeping the proper amount of animals on acreage, crop rotation to keep soil fertile for agriculture, drip line irrigation, and reduce the amount of chemicals and synthetic fertilizers.